What are we talking about today? Once prestigious and expensive watches that are now reduced to an internet watch. Hi everyone, today I'm drinking Olympia's Big Truck Espresso. Cheers. So I was cleaning out my desk, and in one of my drawers I came across these really old watch pamphlets dating back from 1988 even up to 2004. Some of them I'm sure are from my uncle's watch store. Brands like Javril, Concord, Bidet & Company, Baume Mercier, Bertolucci. And I remember these watches as expensive watches alongside some of the better known watches. And so it dawned on me, where are they now? And the answer is they've been demoted to almost exclusively as an internet watch. There are some boutiques, I think Tourneau might carry one or two of these brands, but they're basically an internet watch now. Now, not all internet businesses are bad. Some businesses were born online, and that's different. That's different from a luxury timepiece, or what started out as a luxury timepiece in boutiques is now an internet watch. It means that it failed. So looking at some of these brands, well, I actually liked some of these brands. I remember, for example, Bidet & Company. I remember that they had something that no other watch brand had, and that was a 24-hour concierge service. It was a lot like a black credit card owner who has a black Amex or a black Visa. They had certain perks, and that's what Bidet & Company offered all of their watch owners. Another brand like Javril, well, I actually own this one. I own the Avenue of Americas, and it was a $5,000 watch with the bracelet. It's a long story about that one. Bertolucci, well, I always like the bracelet. It's supposed to be reminiscent of river rocks. So some of these are really nice pieces. Ebel. So what went wrong? What happened with them? Why are they now an internet watch? Well, one of the common themes here is that none of these brands have an in-house movement. They're all either a quartz or an ETA-based movement. So looking at this original price sheet from 1991 for Bertolucci, for example, if you can see that, this watch right here, this chronograph, this gold chronograph, quartz chronograph, they were asking $22,500 in 1991. And it's a lot like these other watches that were really priced high, which means they sort of priced themselves, these watch brands priced themselves out of the market. They were asking way too much for what these watches offered. And I think we became a lot more educated during this whole process, and not necessarily from reading textbooks, but the same home to these watches, which is the internet, is also the same source that put them there. And what I mean by that is, because of social media or the many watch forums there are, we educate ourselves on this. We can always log on to any forum, put out pictures and ask questions. And what do you think about this watch? For example, the Javril, it's a $5,000 watch. Should I get it? Thinking about getting it. What are your thoughts? And we get immediate feedback, and usually it's honest feedback because we respect and we actually take the advice a lot of times of our fellow watch enthusiasts. And we learn, and then we learn that, well, we're spending way too much for an ETA-based movement. We can spend this money on other watch brands. Another internet watch is Javril. This is a brand that I've had personal experience with. I've owned the Avenue of Americas. It was, like I said, a $5,000 retail watch, which was pretty crazy. But it had a lot going on for it. It had major partnerships and celebrity endorsements. It had people like Kevin Costner, Sting, Matthew McConaughey, Brad Garrett, Junior Seau, J-Lo endorsing them. And they came out in the right time, in the right big watch boom movement, I guess you could call it, because that Avenue of America was a pretty big watch. It was also a very attractive watch. It had a nice guilloche dial. It had the nice convex curves on the side. It even had an exhibition case back, but not worthy of the movement that watch had. And the diamonds on it, it actually wasn't cheap little diamond chips. They were top Wesselton diamonds. And the leather strap was a top quality Louisiana alligator strap. So on the outside, this Javril Avenue of Americas had a lot going on for it. Unfortunately, that's where they spent all their time and money on, without anything on the inside of the watch. That movement was a base ETA movement without, it looked like any modifications done to it. And I've come to realize this because when I owned that watch, the date was never centered. The numbers on the date circle or the square wasn't never centered. It was always off. And so I actually ended up returning that watch. Before a watch actually gets demoted to the internet, there are 3 stages before getting there. One is they always start off in a store or a boutique. And then when that doesn't work, the last ditch effort to try to stay relevant, you'll see some of these watch brands in your higher end department store. And then when that doesn't work, then you'll see them on the internet. You might be able to find one or two of these watch brands in stores like Tourneau, but for the most part, they're considered an internet watch. But these aren't the only watches that are there or headed there. In my opinion, I feel that Franck Muller, Corum, and Baume Mercier are also headed in that direction. They basically have one foot out the door already. Franck Muller is an outrageously expensive watch. I mean, I don't think they start under $8,000, and they go up from there for a steel watch. But you can find a Franck Muller now and at Neiman Marcus. Now, Neiman Marcus or Barney's New York are considered some of the highest end department stores on the planet. It would be a great place for you if you were looking for higher end clothes or accessories, but not for a real watch. And if right now you can see Franck Muller at Neiman Marcus. Now, Bremont used to be sold at Barney's New York, but I think they were wise enough because of the perception that it gives off that they pulled their watches out of Barney's New York and are not sold in any department stores in the US at least. Ebel's were sold for about $3,000, $3,500. You can get that one like the Wave, for example, for under $1,000. You can get these watches for a fraction of what they were. So it really makes me think about having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on the next watch, because who knows where they are. Right now, the watch industry is in peril. So, I mean, one of the watches that I wouldn't mind seeing on the internet just for getting it at a fraction of the cost is that Franck Muller. Some of their earlier watches, they had in-house movement. I think that's the only watch of these brands that I mentioned that did. So for a watch that's $10,000, $12,000, you can get them for maybe in a couple years, maybe $2,000, which is still a lot of money. But considering what their earlier prices were, and for what you're getting on that watch specifically, that one might be worth waiting around for. Certainly, I wouldn't buy it now at a department store or Neiman Marcus. It's going to be reduced so much more in a matter of a couple of years. So, like Franck Muller, Baume Mercier, Corum, you used to see these watches a lot. They had a pretty heavy U.S. presence, almost in every boutique that I've ever visited. And I really like the Corum Admiral's Cup. I even like the Franck Muller, and I even like the Baume Merciers. But these are getting increasingly harder and harder to come by, which means they are headed to the internet. And what I mean by that is they're headed to the internet and will be considered as an internet watch only. When they make their pit stop at stores like Neiman Marcus, they're not any cheaper than they were in the boutique, so there wasn't any advantage to be sold in department stores. But they still wanted to be out there and considered relevant again. But there hasn't been, in my observations over the years, a watch that ended up in a high-end department store that went back to the boutiques. I consider the boutiques the major leagues, the big leagues, and then the department stores the minor leagues, and then the internet would be the Samuel. But I have never seen a watch that got demoted to the minors, got put back up to the big league. So the point of this video was rooted from finding these old watch pamphlets. And that gave me pause to think about where these watches ended up from where they were just a matter of a few years ago. And so before I'm going to spend thousands and thousands on my next watch, I'm going to have to really actually reconsider that. It almost is forcing me to have to buy pre-owned, because I don't think anyone thought watches like Chevrille or Ebel would be considered an internet watch. I mean, that Chevrille that I bought I didn't spend $5,000. It retailed at $5,000. I think I probably spent about $3,400, $3,500, something like that. That you can get that watch now for about $600 or $700. I know that would really make me sad and disappointed, knowing how much I spent and how much I could get that watch for now. It would be basically a valueless watch in terms of trying to flip it, because that's not a watch that's high in demand, and I wouldn't get much from that watch considering what they're going for now. So before I buy my next watch and spend thousands of dollars on it, the pause or the concern is, who knows where this watch that I'm looking at now is going to end up in a couple years.
These are things that make you say.
I mean, I have no idea. Nobody knows. But the one thing that I feel somewhat secure about is that most of these higher-end watches now have their own in-house movement. And that's largely because of ETA, which isn't providing their movements as widely as they used to. And that basically forces these watch companies to make their own in-house movements. And that's what could save those watches from becoming an internet watch. And I'm kind of holding on to that hope that those watches with the in-house movements are still going to be around because of that fact. And hopefully they're not going to continue to hike up their prices. Let me know what you think about these internet watch brands and what brands you think are inevitably going to become an internet watch. And thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time.